Hi everyone, welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel. Follow That Dream, Sony Music's official Elvis Presley collector's label, was established in 1999 to serve the dedicated Elvis collector and to complement the commercial and artistic level of RCA's retail release schedule by issuing repertoire that is considered of interest to serious Elvis fans and collectors. Material that is not generally part of the mainstream RCA label release to the public at large. My special guest today is Steve Barile. Steve provides the images for Follow That Dream and Sony releases. He also saw Elvis in concert many times. Steve joins me on the line now. Hi Steve, welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel, and you're very, very welcome.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
And it's my pleasure to speak to you as well. Now, as I said in the intro, you provide photographs and so forth for the artwork for the Follow That Dream label.
Sure. Sony as well.
Yeah. But what I want to do first of all, because I'm really, really excited about this, is you might have seen Elvis live a couple of times. Am I correct in saying that?
7, a little more than a couple.
Well, yeah. That's it. I am so jealous of you.
Well, and I am as you should be, yeah, in that respect.
Exactly. So take us through it then, because as I say, I'm really, really excited to hear all about the details. You actually saw him at Madison Square Garden.
That was my first show, 1972, of course. I was...
What a place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm from New York City and have been my whole life. So I was an Elvis fan already since I was like 5 years old. So in 72, I was 13 and he was coming to New York, and I begged my mom to please get me a ticket or get us a ticket. And that she did. She went down to the box office at the Garden. That's what we did back then, right? And lo and behold, she came home with a few tickets. And that was my first show. I had never been to a place like that before. And I can remember very vividly walking into the place, and the place was still fairly empty. The house lights were up, and I felt something in the air. Couldn't quite, I had never felt anything like that before, but now we might call it a kind of an electricity, an excitement in the air.
Yeah.
And I had never seen him before. I didn't know what to expect. And that's my first memory. And then, of course, when, you get through the opening acts and the lights go down, and they started with the theme from 2001, I had no idea about that either.
Yeah.
And when that started, it really, as you can imagine, forget it. It's Goosebump City.
Mm.
And you're like, God is about to enter the place. And it was an amazing, amazing presence that he had just immediately as soon as he walked on. And I was kind of expecting a person in a white jumpsuit, So I was at the afternoon show, which of course
yes.
He wore blue.
Yeah, I think it's the wheat jumpsuit, I believe.
Yes, correct. And so when I saw him in blue, my favorite color, and he just looked amazing. And the crowd in the place was deafening, at the very sight of him. Flash bulbs, which at the time I thought was part of the show.
You thought it was part of the lighting?
like a strobe effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what it looked like. And, the rest is the 1 hour goes by so very quickly. As soon as Can't Help Falling in Love begins, it's time to say goodbye.
Did you have good seats for this concert?
I was on the floor, the orchestra level, which is what they called it, row 26. I was 26 rows back.
That's not too bad.
Not the best, but not terrible either. It certainly wasn't like a nosebleed section.
Yeah, I know what you mean. This is the concert, if I'm not mistaken, that made it onto the DVD Prince from Another Planet.
That's correct. But long before that was the CD Afternoon in the Garden.
Yes, and you have a connection with that.
Well, that was the first project I ever worked on, ironically enough. Yes.
So the first time you saw him, and also the first project you worked on.
Correct. Yeah. So that was very exciting. I felt it to be an extreme privilege, as I still do. I always find it exciting and fun and a privilege to be involved with FTD and Sony. FTD in particular, they're doing a fabulous job, in my opinion.
Yes. Now, that was probably 1997, was it? An Afternoon in the Garden.
You are correct. Once more, yes.
But I think full mainstream Follow That Dream started in 1999. So it's been going a long, long time. It's been going a long, long time.
Yes, it
has. I think I remember hearing you say that there was more Follow That Dream releases since 1999 than there was Elvis releases while he was alive.
There's no doubt about that.
It's just a phenomenal output.
We're very lucky, aren't we?
Yeah.
I can't imagine any other singer that this could happen for.
Mm.
Where fans would be interested still 45 years after death. That's unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I always think of when I'm listening to one of the Follow That Dream CDs is, when there's like an early take or take one of a track that Elvis has done and it wasn't used, I often find myself asking the question, why wasn't it used? There's nothing wrong with that take. It's perfection. But Elvis might go on and do another 10 or 15 takes of that song.
Well, that's it. I do believe that he was the one who kind of chose what the master should be.
Yes.
So if the genius wasn't happy, he would just do it again.
Yeah. He could probably hear something that we couldn't.
Absolutely. Yes. Or he could only know that in his mind he could do it better.
Mm.
And, in most cases, the master is usually the better take.
Mm. Yeah. Maybe the better balance or the better sound from the...
Yeah, not always, but usually I find that to be the case.
Yeah. It's lovely to hear the evolution of a song, though. Something like, I'm just sort of pulling one out of the air here. Make Me Know It, the very, very first song that he sang when he went into Studio B after he came out of the army.
Elvis is back.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think the master was take 19, but take 1 is brilliant as well. It's so fresh.
Yeah, that happens a lot with some of the ballads as well. Then again, there are certain take 1s that became the master. He only did some things just once. Funny how time slips away comes to mind.
Yeah, and another one, again, we're going back to Elvis's back, is Reconsider Baby. They did that. They fired that off in one take. Unbelievable, really.
Brilliant. Yes.
And it was right at the end of the session as well, wasn't it? I think the sun was coming up. They were just about ready to call it a day. And for whatever reason, Elvis decided he just wanted to do Reconsider Baby, and the band fell in with him. And
no, I think it's one of the greatest blues things I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I always say
by anybody.
I always say hats off to Boots Randolph as well for the sax solo.
Oh, for sure. That's improvisation. That's the kind of musician Boots Randolph was.
Yeah,
and most of those musicians on those sessions were seasoned pros.
Yeah. That's without a doubt. And I love the fact that you can hear Elvis in the background during the sax solo, sort of encouraging and laughing along with Boots.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine being a fly on the wall when he was recording that?
Yeah, well, I fantasize about that all the time. The Memphis sessions, '69.
Yes, yes.
Imagine being a fly on the wall when he did "I'll Hold You in My Heart,"
Yeah.
and I do believe he's at the piano.
Yes, he is correct. Yeah, he's down. He's credited as playing the
Imagine
piano.
that.
Yeah, and he was playing piano on After Loving You as well, I believe.
Correct. Yep.
So, and of course, Follow That Dream has done a really, really good set of the American studio sessions as well in '69.
I agree.
Yeah, fantastic.
I
So,
like the 3 separate volumes that they did.
yeah, yes, yeah. Let's cover a few other concerts you saw and make me even more jealous. Where did we go after Madison Square Garden?
The following year, he's coming back to the New York area at the Nassau Coliseum, which is on Long Island here. And I believe what we did for that show was mail order, a mail order ticket, right? You could write to the place and they send you a ticket. So we got our tickets that way for the Saturday evening show. And I would say around 2 weeks prior to the show, an older friend of mine at the time, I say older, if I was 14, he was about 25. He too was an Elvis fan. And I get a knock on the door. I open it and it's my friend. He says, you want to go see Elvis? I said, well, I have a ticket already for Saturday night. He said, well, I have a ticket for Sunday for you. So here we go. I got to see him back-to-back shows in '73 in June 23rd and 24th. That was, and those shows were phenomenal. It's like smack dab in the middle of the Garden and Aloha, right? Time-wise. And so he was in great form. He looked amazing. He sounded amazing. The Sunday show he did I'm Leaving and How Great Thou Art.
Oh, wow.
Saturday night he did Bridge, What Now My Love, Trilogy. Those were always showstoppers. And those were amazing shows. If you've ever seen private footage of those shows, you'll know what I mean.
I think on the 24th he was wearing the nail suit. I have it down as the nail suit on the 24th.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and he did Steamroller, complete with stripper kicks and all.
I think I've
If you've ever seen that footage.
I think I've seen some footage of that on YouTube. Yeah, where he does the kicks. And they've married it up. They married up the sound with the footage, and it looks really, really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's people are doing an amazing job with the dubbing of sound to those films nowadays. Jack Mullins is like the ultimate expert when it comes to that.
Yeah. Oh, Jack knows his stuff as well. Yes. And
absolutely.
He worked on the Bruce Jackson DVD, I believe.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. A little bit smaller, I think the audience was in the Nassau Stadium. Was there 16,500 compared to 20,000 in Madison Square Garden?
That's correct. Yes. Mm-hmm. Nassau Coliseum is not quite as big as the Garden.
Not that you'd probably notice, those extra few thousand people. The noise, I would imagine, would be fairly loud.
It was very similar. Yeah, whenever I saw Elvis, the crowd was just besides themselves. It's just the effect he had on the audience, myself included. You kind of like it's like nothing you've ever seen before or since.
He loved toying with the audience, didn't he? When he was in the round, if there were the crowd behind him as well, he'd stop and he'd turn just to look at them, and he'd laugh and he'd wink at Charlie because they'd scream just because he turned round.
Exactly. Yeah. Sure. Yes, and he got a big kick out of that, as well he should. He had the crowd thousands of people in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
It's got to be an amazing feeling to an individual, right?
In fact, he often said it was a two-way street, and he could feel the electricity from the audience in himself.
I'm sure. Yes, I kind of like the next show I saw. I was in the second row, so I was closer to him than I ever had been previously, which was July 19th, 1975, at the same venue.
Yeah, and there was a big highlight in that show, I believe, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Very, very difficult to explain.
What did he do?
You'll Never Walk Alone. You'll Never Walk Alone.
Oh, wow. Yes.
At the piano.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't used to playing the piano in concert. This must have been one of the first times he'd probably did it.
Well, if you listen to the audience recording, before doing it, he says, "This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah,
but I've never had the guts to do it."
Yeah. Which is quite odd to hear Elvis Presley say something like that. I haven't had the guts to do it. It's quite odd to hear that, isn't it?
Well, we do know that there was a streak of insecurity within him, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was an idea he had been toying with for a while, like he said, and he was feeling he was in terrific voice. Just, the best I had heard him up to that point. I couldn't believe when he stretched to reach that note in How Great Thou Art.
Uh-huh.
That was the first time I ever heard that, the "Oh my God" part.
Oh, yes.
I was directly under him, and I was cringing when he reached for that note. But lo and behold, he was, again, he was better than I thought he was.
It's something he probably couldn't have done in, say, 1970. He could do it in 75.
Right. Not as powerful. His voice was at its powerful peak at that point.
Yeah.
And it continued to get even more powerful, in my opinion. That show was phenomenal, but what brought me to that show was when you said something about him feeling the energy back from the audience. So from that perspective, being like literally maybe 10 feet from him, directly under him for the entire show, I could see for the first time how he felt the vibes from the audience, and how he just got better with the audience's reaction. If he saw the audience was enthused the way he needed it to be, he would just improve during the course of the show.
Yeah, he fed off their reaction.
Exactly. And that could be one of the reasons why he did "You'll Never Walk Alone." He sensed that the crowd was really into him, as they were. And you've heard the recording, I'm sure.
I have. Yes.
That entire show is great. Even when he did "Love Me Tender," he should have done it that way always. He does it like virtually a cappella and at the tempo of the original. Sounded amazing.
Yeah, because it was always faster in concert normally, wasn't it?
It was always rushed, sure, as most of his.
He wanted to get through the 50s fairly quickly, didn't he?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Being that close to the stage, did you manage to get anything from Elvis?
I got a scarf. Actually, I got two scarves. The first one I had to wrestle for. A woman next to me, he threw it in our direction, and we both grabbed one end, and we kind of played a little bit of a tug of war. And I, being the gentleman that I was even then, I let it go.
Yeah.
And I do believe he was aware of that.
He probably saw it.
Yeah, because he got another one around his neck. He looked directly into my eyes and threw it right at me.
Goodness
and
me.
I got that one, and another one during the course of the show, a red one and a blue one. And, at the end of the show, I gave it to a young lady that was with me in the group at the time.
But you probably have the other one. You have the other one, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, prominently displayed along with a photograph from the show and the ticket stub.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Which we'll show you sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. So did you get to shake his hand, or?
Well, it was more like a touch, you know. But yeah, at the end of the show, as we rushed the stage, he would, selectively touch certain people's hand. I wouldn't say he shook anybody's hand.
Yeah,
it was more like a touch, But yes, I was one of them. Yes.
Brilliant. The next year, 76. Did you see any 76 shows?
I saw Philadelphia and New Haven.
How were they? Because 76 was quite a... I'm not being unkind when I say this, but he was at a low ebb in 76. Some of the shows weren't that good. The health issues were starting to take a toll, I believe, in 76.
No doubt about it. And we kind of felt that, the Philadelphia was somewhat of what I would say kind of a lazy show by comparison to those that I had seen prior, right?
Yeah.
We're talking the Garden, Nassau 73 and Nassau 75. They were amazing. So this Philadelphia was somewhat of a lazy show. However, I must stress that his presence, the feeling of his presence never diminished. As soon as he walked out, it was an amazing reaction from the crowd. He still had a presence that you never felt by anyone else. And then, he would let you know that he still got it when he did things like Hurt and America the Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So you knew he had it, but something was just not quite right. And again, in 76, I was 17 years old and in a little bit of denial in retrospect, You didn't want to believe that there was a problem. You just might not be feeling so good today, or in spite of what you read in the newspapers, I certainly was in denial. This was my ultimate idol, my ultimate hero.
Of course, yeah.
I never wanted to hear anything negative about him back then. And New Haven was kind of pretty much the same.
Still knocking them dead, though.
Like I said, the crowd reaction was just amazing. And, when he wanted to belt it out, he could. So, I kind of focused on the positive parts of the shows,
I often wonder, we're talking obviously the 1970s, and technology was nowhere near what it's like now. What was the sound like at these concerts?
Sound was great. Yeah, it wasn't the 50s, The sound in the 70s was pretty awesome, especially live, I don't want to neglect saying this, if you never heard Elvis live, you really don't know how great he was.
I can believe that.
The voice was rich, the voice was full, and when he hit some powerful notes, the floor shook. I could, especially remember that in the 75 show when he did things like You'll Never Walk Alone or How Great Thou Art. Just amazingly powerful. No, there was certainly nothing wrong with the sound in the buildings that I attended.
But I mean, the artists today, they have the luxury of auto-tune and things like that, even in live concerts now, not just in the studio. Elvis did so much on 1970s, really sort of, to compare to today, crude technology, really.
He was a pure natural. You could hear that even in the home recordings.
Yes.
As in poor quality. The guy was a natural born singer. And, certainly showed when you saw him live. He sounded even better than the records. That's something I don't want to neglect to say either. He sounded better than his record. When he did Hurt, it was better than the record. And most anything else, Trilogy,
Yeah.
you name it.
Yeah. The last concert, I mean, I know you at the time, obviously none of us knew that what was going to happen. You didn't realize that this would be the last time you saw him, but you saw him in 1977?
Correct. Once more in Philadelphia, yes.
May 28th?
And that was May 28th.
That was quite a good one by 1977 standards, I think.
Well, I was about to say it was better than 76. So I was happy.
Mm.
I unfortunately, my seats were behind him. I was sitting like behind Ronnie Tutt.
Right.
So, most of the show, I caught him from the back. And if you see any photographs, he never looked bad from the back.
Yeah.
But I did see that he had somewhat of a belly, and I did not get a really good look at his face, and he sounded terrific.
Yeah.
So once again, I was happy. He did My Way, Hurt, It's Now or Never, and so I came away from that show much happier than I did in 76.
Mm-hmm.
I think 77 gets a bad rap.
Yeah, I agree with you.
His voice was amazing.
There were still a few off nights. Unfortunately, one of the ones that springs to mind was June 19th, Omaha, which was one of the ones, unfortunately, that CBS taped for Elvis in concert. Yeah. But then again, you see the difference in only a couple of days later on June the 21st.
That's correct. Yes, and in my opinion, he was probably extremely nervous. He knew the way he looked. He was not happy with that. And there's television cameras going to be on him.
They made him wear makeup.
Yeah, well, that's always for television,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he probably got a little too sedated.
Mm.
And if you know, even if you watch that show, towards the middle and the end, he kind of is becoming more of himself.
Yeah.
But by that time the show is almost over. However, there are some vocals that are brilliant. How Great Thou Art comes to mind.
Yeah. I think they were supposed to film 3, but
I wish they would have filmed. Lincoln was in the middle.
That's right. I think they were supposed to film. I think they were supposed to film Lincoln. Yeah.
Yeah.
And strangely, the cameras were there at Indianapolis, but they didn't film inside the building. I think there was insurance, or they couldn't get permission or something to film Indianapolis.
A pity, isn't it?
Yeah, because that was a really, really good show, apparently.
Yeah, and so was Cincinnati.
Yeah.
The night before in Indianapolis. Yeah, it's a pity that there is relatively little professional film of the greatest ever. Really is a pity.
Big pity that Madison Square Garden wasn't filmed professionally.
Sure.
July the 31st, yes, July the 31st, 1969 should have been, but maybe then again the pressure might have been just too much for Elvis,
Yeah, there's so much that every tour should have been filmed professionally. But we won't. We'll reserve our discussion of Colonel Parker for a later date.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to briefly cover Elvis on Tour, because we know that we think there's work being done on that. Is that correct? Elvis on Tour?
Man, I wish I had something definitive to tell you. I can only hope. That's the reason I was happy about the movie being as successful as it was. That being the Austin Butler movie, just for the fact that might encourage the powers that be to release some Elvis on Tour.
Yeah.
because there are many hours of enjoyment for people like us if they were to restore the film the way they should, and the sound quality. It could be an amazing experience.
I mean, the whole movie, in my opinion, needs a recut and a remaster, and some of the sort of the dead wood taken out and more Elvis put in. I mean,
Sure,
I mean, I don't know about you, but nobody wants to see the Coke machines and the people filing in to see him. You know, maybe a 10 or 15-second shot of them filing in to see him, but we want to see Elvis. That's what we want to see.
I totally agree. And some Elvis fans have done just that with the movie. There are some private versions of the movie floating around that are fantastic. Even the angles have been improved upon. Like instead of 3 angles, you have 2 angles with only Elvis on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
And computer programs are such nowadays, like you mentioned, with technology, that a lot can be done with virtually no loss of quality.
Yeah.
So until they do the right thing, if ever they do, there are some other enjoyable versions of Elvis on tour out there.
Well, let's cover it for a little while. There was 19 concerts in that April tour. We know that I think 5 were definitely recorded and filmed, and they were
5. You say?
Well, I've got 5 written down here. I've got Hampton Roads, both 2:30 and 8:30. That was on the 9th. I've got April the 10th, which was Richmond. Greensboro on the 14th at 8:30, and the San Antonio on the 18th. And then we've also got, this was very, very interesting. You will have seen this on YouTube as well. The opening night on April 5th in Buffalo, videotaped in black and white by, it was either Robert Abel or Pierre Adage, I think.
Right.
For sort of, you know, to get a really the sort of the way that an Elvis concert, the choreography really of a Elvis concert for the guys that were going to be filming. And there's also a brief sequence in Dayton, I believe, on the 7th. Now, again, why just show a brief sequence? They must have filmed the whole show.
Well, if they didn't film the whole show, they must have filmed at least a song or 2.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Right? So let's not dream too big. I would even welcome one complete song from Dayton.
Yeah.
But you're correct. There is film of Dayton in the movie, and there is also film of Knoxville in the movie.
Okay. Knoxville was there was an afternoon and an evening show at Knoxville on the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, he was wearing the snowflake, the 1971 snowflake in the afternoon and the blue nail in the afternoon. I didn't know that. There is actually footage of
Yeah, so the film in the movie is the blue nail. Did you call it the blue nail?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the clip in the movie is with the blue nail. The reason I know this is I have private footage from Knoxville.
Wow.
In the blue nail, and he does exactly the same move that you see in the Elvis on Tour film.
Mm-hmm.
When he first walks on stage, I can't even describe the kind of move that he does.
Is it the shrug of the shoulders?
Something like that.
Yeah.
You can call it that. The shrug of the shoulders, or he's kind of like, almost like he does a football move, like
yeah,
from side to side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about?
I've watched that sequence many times. And when he gets onto the stage, he looks left and right. He's kind of confused. I think he's sort of toying with the audience. He doesn't know which way to walk.
So I have private footage, like I said, where it's exactly the same thing from a different angle, of course.
Yeah.
But I'd bet my bottom dollar that they filmed in Knoxville as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if they filmed at other shows that, we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's an awful lot of footage that we haven't seen.
There is.
And of course,
There
there's the footage that they sort of took, sort of him rehearsing and then doing the sort of the fake recording session after the real recording session as well. So there's all that as well. There's a lot of that to be seen as well. You've seen the picture that I've seen of Pierre Adage and Robert Abel. And they're standing in front of a whole load of film cans, and it says Elvis on tour.
Sure, yeah.
And we've got the magnifying glass up many times to try and see what's written on them.
Right. Well, you know, the videotape that you mentioned earlier, sold in an auction, like 7 years ago or something like that. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Believe it was 110 grand or 150 grand, something like that.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. It's actually very good. It's very clear for a 1972 video.
From what we, and what we hear, it's most of the show that was videotaped, like 45 minutes of it. And so it's in the hands of a private collector, and who knows if anybody will ever get to see it. But it does exist, as we know. Yeah.
I've seen a couple of minutes of it on YouTube. It was very clever the way they filmed Elvis on tour, the concerts, because the cassettes that they had in the cameras only lasted for 11 minutes. So they staggered them, didn't they? They started the cameras at different times, so there would never be a camera down, so there'd never be a complete blackout. They wouldn't miss any of the concert.
The video, you mean? The Buffalo show?
No, the actual shows that we see in Elvis on tour, the 16 mil.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They only the cassettes only held 11 minutes, I think. So they had to stagger the cameras, so there was never a complete and utter blackout. So they never missed part of a concert.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Right?
And then there's that lovely outtake in Albuquerque, I believe, where the 8-year-old Denise Sanchez gets to meet Elvis. She had cancer, didn't she?
Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah.
Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah.
Elvis, and he could barely look at her.
I know. He seemed quite subdued and quite sad when he was talking to her, didn't he?
Exactly. He could barely bring himself to look at her and think, to think that he's got to do this just before a show.
Yeah.
It's yeah. But that is a very touching scene.
She requested he sing a song, and he says, I won't tell you which one it is, but he did say in the end, didn't he, that it was You Gave Me a Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think he said that. I think he said this is for somebody very special, something like that anyway, if somebody said that to me once. So we cover the thing we were talking about earlier on, which is the Follow That Dream label, and the images that you supply, how you got started on that, and sort of how many images have you got? Is it sort of hundreds or is it thousands or?
I would have to say it's a couple of 100,000.
Wow.
He's the most photographed human being to ever grace the planet.
And this was before smartphones and cell phones.
Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, I would. I'd go out of my mind trying to get every piece of film from everybody's phone. It would be virtually impossible. But I've been collecting photographs of him my entire life, and I enjoy the footage as well. Whenever anything new turns up, like that airport stuff that came out a few weeks back.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
Yeah, I actually covered that on a show actually, and I saw it. I saw the show. Yeah. I was quite annoyed at the way the security guard spoke to Elvis actually about that.
Well, you'd have to put yourself, I guess, in the individual's position. He was probably given certain orders, right?
Yeah, Colonel Parker,
especially by Parker. Right, exactly. So the guy's just doing his job, ultimately. Soon, Elvis comes out and there's a reporter there. Elvis, cordial. He's ready to speak with the reporters. What do you think of the fans? Oh, it's fantastic. He looks over, he smiles, get in the car. The guy was just doing his job, what he was told to do. you can hear Parker take off.
Yeah, that's the last thing you hear. Then it cuts to the fans being interviewed. But it did annoy me the first time I watched it, and I heard him saying, "Get in the car, get in the car," and I just. But
it annoys you because you want to see more Elvis.
Yes, that's quite correct. Quite correct.
Indeed, but the fact of the matter is, he's on tour. He's between shows. Was he off to a show? He's got to get dressed, but. How many times you see footage or even snapshots of Elvis at airports, signing autographs, talking to the fans. He was always obliging.
Yeah.
Somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, "Get in the car," he's only doing what, following protocol.
And of course, he had a show to do as well. They were probably on a strict time limit as well.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
But it just goes to show there is more footage out there that's going to come out, definitely.
That was my first reaction. Well, I was like completely shocked when I saw the quality of it. It was amazing. I loved that. And then that was my next thought was, God only knows what's out there. And hopefully we have more surprises like that in the near future.
So did you buy these sort of in small quantities, or was there a large quantity at the beginning when you started collecting these photographs? Are they digitized or are they all on paper?
Nowadays, mostly digitized. There's literally, a finite amount of room to print them all out. There's, just it's impossible. But everything's digitized for the most part. And it's amazing how you could still come across photographs of him that you've never seen every day almost,
Yeah.
Like with Facebook and stuff like that.
Well, did you see the one that came out a few weeks ago of him taken in Hawaii?
Of course,
and it said on the border of the print March 1973, but that was of course when it was printed. And in my opinion,
you did something on your show too, right?
I mean, in my opinion, I think it's more likely to be May 1972.
Well, it could also be November 72.
Yeah, and November, because he was in Hawaii for concerts, two concerts in November. Yeah, but he seems to be wearing the same clothes that he was wearing when he flew back to the States from Hawaii.
Right.
The blue pants, the gold belt, and the white shirt. There's actually photographs of him taken on May the 19th. Yeah.
Yeah, there was recently a photograph of him in the plane on eBay that I had never seen before. He's sitting in a seat and looking directly at the camera and smiling. I had never seen that before.
Right. Is that the one with Sonny West in the background?
No, nobody's in the background. It's just him sitting in the seat, like kind of like leaning forward, looking at whoever's taking the picture, and smiling, wearing a Hawaiian lei.
Right.
It's a great shot.
Right. There's three that surfaced as well this last week of him in a Jeep. Did you see those in the Army?
In the Army? Yes, sir.
He's yes, sir. He seems to be reading a Peanuts comic book. And on the third one, he's taking a light from somebody. He's lighting. It looks either like a cigar or a cigarette.
Yeah, like I said, the most photographed human being on the planet.
Yes,
no doubt in my mind.
Okay, so we will. If people look on the Follow That Dream CDs, they will see your name as being photographs courtesy of Steve Barile. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've done an awful lot, obviously, since 1999, probably countless numbers now. And I'd wonder, is the well getting dry, or we still got lots of Follow That Dream releases to look forward to?
Well, if you like soundboards, I would bet that there's several more years worth of soundboards left. And it's always a pleasure to contribute when I can. I believe this is a very positive thing for Elvis's legacy, his musical legacy, and I'm very grateful to be able to have the opportunity to help with his legacy
Well, we're as fans,
in a positive way, of course.
in a positive way, yeah. And us as fans are grateful to the work that you do, and Ernst and Roger Seaman and Ernst Jorgensen.
Absolutely, they're in my opinion doing a phenomenal job. Even with the vinyl, I'm not a big fan of vinyl, but the designs that they're working with, and they're fans themselves. So that's really a big part of why they do such a good job. Is they are fans and they know what the fans want in most cases.
Yeah. I always think that. Do you remember the legendary performer series that Joan Deary started in, what was it, 1974? I always think that the legendary performer is or rather I should say, Follow That Dream became what legendary performer should have become. She sort of sowed the seeds for the alternate takes and unheard recordings and rare recordings and things like that. And
Good point. Sure.
Follow That Dream took over from that and has really done the job properly.
Yeah, and again, it's mainly because they're fans, Ernst and Roger.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so I think Ernst is a very, very lucky man. Think of that position that he's got, right?
Yeah.
It's a great job.
Yeah, he actually gets to sit down and listen to unheard Elvis all day.
Yeah, there's that, and then and even for somebody like myself, it trickles down to a fan like myself, and contributing to these things. It's always great fun, and I must say I'm very proud of it.
It's a great time to be an Elvis fan because there's definitely been a resurgence.
Well, it was a greater time to be an Elvis fan 46 years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That without doubt. Yeah.
I can relate to what you're saying.
There's definitely been a resurgence thanks to Baz and Austin and everybody.
Absolutely, it's never really died down for me. So there's always the music, there's always the packaging and everything else. Yeah, I agree. It's a great time to be an Elvis fan.
Yeah, I know some people dipped in and dipped out of Elvis over the years, but I was always in. I've had over 50 odd years of Elvis.
Well, there's a difference between hearing him and having him in your life and becoming obsessive. And I know I can just tell that you're obsessive.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing, by the way. It's a beautiful thing. I've always had Elvis to rely on.
Yes, that's right.
I've always had him there to rely on, and it still works.
Yeah, even the darkest day, you put a little bit of Elvis on, and it gets a little bit lighter, doesn't
it? Absolutely. Keeps life fun for me and exciting.
Yeah.
So, yep. I'm very, very grateful.
Can I ask you what's on the horizon, or is it top secret?
Well, you've heard about the new 74 Vegas thing coming out.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
January 74. That's going to be fun. Actually, I hear it's out already. So it might be available for download. I'm not really sure. After that, there's the new Memphis vinyl that's already out. And there has been talk of a few different things. People are speculating about some sessions again, How Great Thou Art, perhaps, has been discussed. That's got to be done eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I could get any more specific than that, not really.
Yeah.
I just
okay. But
that's about.
We can be satisfied that there is stuff in the pipeline anyway. That makes me happy.
Well, these session releases, I'm sure, are going to continue. And as I said, the soundboards, I know for a fact that they have enough for several years, and think they're just starting to put out now like three at a time,
Yeah.
right? Which is great. Which is great. I have high hopes for the 74, January 74. I was totally floored by the Louisiana Memphis package. The Baton Rouge show is amazing. It's excellent. And the sound quality is fantastic. Are you familiar with that package?
No, no, but I'm now you've recommended it. I'm going to be. I'm going to try and listen to it. But the fact that they had the presence of mind to record just about all his shows is just fantastic.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank
Right?
goodness. Yeah.
Thank goodness they did. Bruce Jackson. Yeah, and a lot of these things, they were recording for possible release and or just in case a musician, they needed to get another musician, they would need these cassettes for them to play. And I've even heard that Elvis wanted them recorded. So, could be several reasons why they were recorded, but thankfully they were. And some better quality than others. But that Louisiana Memphis package, if you have not heard it, you're in for a treat.
Right.
I especially love the Baton Rouge show from July 2nd, I believe it is, of 76. Yep, sound quality is terrific. And you're familiar with the Memphis show, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, the sound quality here is, I think, even a notch better than what we've had before.
It's funny you mentioned the Memphis show. I had a caller to the show the other night that said that Elvis specifically asked Al Dvorin when he made the announcement at the end of the show to say that it was recorded in his hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah,
right.
Elvis was so proud to say, to think that he was doing concerts in his hometown.
Now, was that said on the album, the 74 album?
Yeah, right? I remember listening when the very, very first time I listened to the actual vinyl back in the 70s.
Right.
And Al says Elvis has now left for Graceland. This
left for Graceland.
Yeah, that you don't hear that very often. And then he says
Elvis's hometown.
Yeah, hometown. Yeah, he mentions the hometown. Yeah.
Now, have you been to Memphis, Steve?
I have. I've been to Graceland, yes. Yeah. Not as often as I'd like. I really, really want to get there again, but it'll probably be when I retire now in about 5 years' time. You go to Memphis quite often?
I went for like 30 years in a row. So now it's kind of come down to like the important anniversaries, unless, I just get a whim to go. I mean, it's, I could drive or fly. I mean, driving is about 16 hours, but, I really don't mind a long road trip. And this past August, I happened to have a lot of fun. It was a great time. And I'm actually thinking about going back this August.
So you've seen a lot of changes in the Graceland area.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I don't like what I see nowadays, but it's become more about getting together with fellow fans and friends that you've made and know people for like decades because of Elvis.
Yeah.
So it's always a great time.
Yeah, well, when we went, there was no guest house. It was still the Heartbreak Hotel. There was no huge complex across the road. There was a complex, but there was no huge complex across the road.
I loved Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah, it was fun.
I used to stay there when it was Wilson World.
Oh, right. Yeah. And it was like, it was one of those times where you'll never ever forget it. I'll never ever forget the time I was there. It was just, you could feel the Elvis influence. You could feel something when you were there.
Absolutely, especially when you walk in the house, right?
Yeah, and also at the actual gravestones as well, because we did the early morning walk up at 7:30, and we went to the meditation garden, and there's definitely you can definitely feel something there.
Yeah, big changes. The restaurants are still good.
Mm-hmm.
Crime has gone up. tenfold.
Wow.
But still a great time, especially when, you're surrounded by Elvis fans. I mean, fans like yourself and myself,
Yeah.
not just, I think it was Bruce Springsteen said, there are pretenders and there are contenders.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, man, think about August.
Yes. Be very, very hot in August, I understand, though. Is that correct?
Well, when did you go? 20 years ago?
Well, actually,
it
it was hot when we went. We were the beginning of June. So
man, you got to be there during Elvis week.
Yeah.
There's, you don't have to really spend a lot of time outdoors.
Mm.
But yeah, you should definitely be part of Elvis week.
I hear the prices have actually gone up quite substantially as well, unfortunately, to do a lot of it. Is that correct?
You don't want to stay at the guest house in Elvis week. Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because, if it's not Elvis week, it's not that expensive, and it's a very nice place to stay. I stayed there once or twice. I enjoyed it. But yeah, the other things going through the house and the tours, of course, the prices have gone up. But how often do you do this?
Exactly.
And it's something it's something that you're passionate about. So
I agree. And of course, when we were there, we took all the other stuff in as well, like Sun Studio, Beale Street, Humes, Lauderdale Court. We tried to cram as much in as we could. Sun Studios was something else. When I stood on that X that they have marked on the floor, wow, unbelievable. Yep. It was the hairs on the back of my neck just stood right up.
Have you been to Nashville?
No, we never made it to Nashville. No, I would have loved to have seen Studio B.
You got to see Studio B. It's a great tour, and I think you should start thinking about going in August. Right now.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list, definitely.
Elvis week.
Yeah, and I'll see you there.
It's about 4 or 5 months away.
Yeah,
so plenty of time. Yeah.
Definitely.
Be a great place to meet.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Steve, I'm going to let you go because you've given me an awful lot to work with here now. I've really, really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
So have I.
Sharing all this with my listeners as well. I'm sure they get a great kick out of hearing this. And I hope that we can speak again sometime.
Totally my pleasure, and I look forward to speaking sometime very soon.
Thanks, Steve. All the best.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
My thanks once again to Steve for sharing his memories of seeing Elvis in concert and for telling us about his contribution to the Follow That Dream and Sony releases. I found Steve a fascinating guest, and I hope you did too. Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel can be found on YouTube and all podcast providers. You can join me live on YouTube every Sunday when I do an Elvis quiz with a monthly prize, and we also have lots of Elvis features during the show. You can also phone the channel free and chat about all things Elvis with me. Until then, take care, and I hope you will join me next time on Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel.